Instances of anti-Semitism have been springing up more frequently in the U.S. ever since the October 7th Hamas terrorist attack on Israel. Today on Capitol Hill, members of the House Committee on Education and the Workforce and a panel of experts and witnesses probed anti-Semitism in labor unions. Here to discuss his testimony is Glenn Taubman, staff attorney at the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation. Glenn Taubman, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
Now, talk to me about the cases you're seeing ever since the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel. You said that your phone lines have been ringing off the hook. Can you talk to us about what you're seeing?
Sure. So at the National Right to Work, we provide free legal aid to individual employees only. Since the October 7th Hamas massacres, these unions have been attacking Jewish workers and Jewish grad students and people in their bargaining units. Instead of doing legitimate collective bargaining, they are using their resources and their money to attack Israel. And you see it on college campuses with these riots and encampments and all of that. And so Jewish workers are calling us and saying, how do I get out of this union? How can I defund them? How can I stop paying dues? Because it's all going to these pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish causes. And we're seeing that on campuses all over, from MIT to the University of Chicago, Northwestern, NYU, all over the country. And then on top of that, we're getting doctors, residents, and interns at the nation's teaching hospitals. And they're saying the same thing. The union is putting out vicious propaganda against my religion, against Israel. And how do I get out of this? And so our phones are literally ringing off the hook. And we're advising these employees on how they can protect themselves from viciously anti-Semitic unions.
It seems that unions are veering off their original course of representing the workers, fighting for better working conditions. Should unions in general be getting involved in political matters?
And that's a great point. And the answer is no. They have no business getting involved in a foreign war that's 3,000 miles away, that has nothing to do with them. But the problem is unions have so much money that they can compel people to pay, that this is part of their whole operation now.
Now, with unions, I heard it's very hard to leave one. How does federal law make it more difficult for someone to leave a union?
So, it depends on where you're working and what law covers you. Your congressman has to run for re-election every 2 years. Your senator has to run for re-election every 6 years. But the union never actually has to run for re-election. Once they're certified as the union, only if the employees can band together and get a very difficult decertification vote does the union stand a chance of being pushed out. Well, that's very difficult in a place like MIT, where you have thousands of grad students that rotate through in 1, 2, 3-year cycles. They're never going to be able to pull off a decertification in a place like this. So the law is set up to basically get unions in power and keep them in power and make it so entrenched that even if 100% of the people at MIT woke up tomorrow and said, we don't like this union, we don't want them to be our bargaining agent anymore, it would be physically impossible for them to get out.
What would a national right to work law look like?
A national right to work law would simply say, unions can't force anyone to be members or pay dues. It's like any other private organization. Nobody tells you that you have to belong to a specific church. Nobody tells you you have to belong to an affinity group. No one tells you that you can't belong to a church or an affinity group. But with unions, they have a special privilege under the law, which is they can force, if you're not in a right to work state, they can force people to pay some amount of the dues or be fired. I mean, this is not an idle threat. People get fired in this country if they refuse to pay dues. So a national right to work law, all it would add one sentence to federal labor law that would say no one can be forced to join or pay to any union as a condition of employment. That's it.
Glenn Taubman, thank you very much for your time here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.